here? Now you should be able to see all my screen. So today I'm gonna talk about, not only talk about, but involve you into discovering team toxins, so ways of how teams can work, create a safer, more sustainable environment and the culture within their system. So to activate from the first moment, please open up the chat and think of a team you have been a member of. It can be a recent team, it can be a team from the past, it doesn't matter, but think about how were you in this team when things got difficult. Just open up the chat and jot down a couple of words that pop into your mind. How were things in this team when things were difficult? Awkward, frustrating, stressful, lack of engagement, finger pointing, silent. Okay. There's angry, not able to sleep properly. So there is a lot, and probably the list could go on and on and on. And this is actually what I'm going to talk about today. So my name is Christian Hoftstetter. I am not a professional Scrum trainer, Jamie. Just to make this clear, I'm a Scrum enthusiast. No, this is Simon. Simon, he's a colleague of mine, but I'm a super passionate team and leadership coach. And one of my most recent passions is kind of trauma, working with development trauma and bringing this in the context of organization and teams. But enough said about myself. So let's talk about team toxins. Dr. John Gottman, he's an American psychologist, and he specialized, he's still alive, and he specialized in working with couples. So he was super curious about kind of what's happening if you put two people together in a room. And when you observe them, their communication, what is going on? This is what he did. So this is, if he put two people in a glass box, in the love box, basically, it's the way he called it. And he stood outside and he observed their interactions. And what he noticed was a pattern, were recurring patterns over their interactions that they had. He noticed something that he called blaming. There were patterns, behavioral patterns, which he then called stonewalling. There was also something that he noticed was like this defensiveness. And last, there was contempt. So really harsh, really toxic behavior. And by the time through his studies, he actually got really good at predicting if a marriage is going to hold or if they're going to get divorced. I believe just kind of ballparking with a precision of 60%, he was able to predict if a marriage was going to hold 60 to 80%. So he got really good at it. And as it turns out that these team toxins, these toxic behaviors, they do not only hold for relationships, but they also hold for a team context, like the systems that we work in, day out in our context. So just to briefly walk you through these toxins and just some pointers, which I call here symptoms. So how can you spot this toxic behavior in a team? So starting with blaming, for example, this kind of, at least I know this one developer, he's constantly critical about everything that we want to do, right? Oh, are you sure? Are you really kind of this chronically criticizing something? So we all know people who are really domineering, just kind of taking the whole space, like more or less like I do right now, just kind of filling the team meeting, filling the sprint planning, kind of constantly talking throughout and just kind of not creating time or possibility for others. When we look at stonewalling, we sometimes see patterns, we see symptoms in teams like passivity, disengaging, right? I just could walk away, somebody turning off their, just kind of maybe also leaning a bit back if we're in a virtual setting, or just kind of yawning sometimes, right? When we look at the pattern of defensiveness, there we kind of this not being open to influence, something that I notice a lot, right? So that you're really stuck on your opinion and you do not allow other opinions also to kind of take precedence over yours. So you're really stuck, you're really rigid and not open that somebody else's idea might actually also be good. So, and kind of the refusing to take responsibility is like, oh, not me. Maybe somebody else, but not me. And the last cluster that we have is contempt. And so things that I notice is eye rolling, right? We all remember maybe, I don't know, a retrospective or just a retrospective when somebody's saying something and you see this person over there just kind of rolling their eyes. Or what I notice a lot in my context is sarcasm, especially in a chat, like there's a presentation going on, somebody's presenting something, and then in the background, in back channels, people are just posting sarcastic things. So all this behavior, we see this day in and day out in our teams. And this is what's it about today. So Vishal, I ask you to prepare the first breakouts. And while Vishal is preparing the breakouts, I ask you to get your thinking started first. So think about again the team that you brought up in my check-in question, the team that you thought of that had this kind of what behavior that they showed. And now having a rough understanding of these 4 team toxins, doesn't need to be perfect, but just with this rough understanding, think about which of the 4 quadrants, which of the 4 team toxins that this team mostly occupied. And also think about how is this team toxin, for example, like if you picked sarcasm, which would be then, if you notice sarcasm in your team, which would be contempt, how is this team toxin trying to be helpful? How is it trying to help the team or the person to achieve something? So 2 questions, groups of 3, 6 minutes in a breakout, have a short conversation, and maybe we achieve to post the picture in the chat so that you can download it and have it as a reference. Vishal, where are we with the breakouts?
We can start the breakout rooms. Give me a shout.
Awesome. So again, in your groups of 3, briefly share which of the 4 team toxins is this team that you thought of mostly occupying. Then discuss the emotion behind this toxin, kind of what is the emotion, and how is it trying to be helpful. Have a nice 6-minute conversation now. So I hope you had an interesting 6-minute conversation. It was definitely not enough time, this I'm aware, but as time is of essence, just please open quickly up your chat and put in what is the emotion behind the team toxin of the team that you thought of. So what emotions came up in your conversation? Just in one word, don't write the whole novel. What emotion came up, or what's the emotion behind the toxin? So there's insecurity, distrust, self-preservation, yeah, anxiety, superiority, anger, lack of safety, fear, aggression. So you are all right. So everything that you put in is right. In essence, basically what is happening. And I'm not going too deep into psychology because this is not kind of my main area. But in essence, our mind is trying to protect us from emotional overwhelm. So it's a protection mechanism that is actually trying to serve us. It has a positive intention. The sarcasm or even eye rolling or blaming or domineering. It's how we try to protect ourselves. Maybe not in a very skillful way. So this is the other side. So now the question is, what can we do? How can we go about if with these kind of team toxins, with this toxic behavior? So first, it's normal that it exists, right? It's human behavior that is showing. And what we have here are some kind of antidotes. So these are practices that we can agree as a team to leverage in order to have less of the toxic behavior and a bit more of the more healthy, the more sustainable, the more useful, the more effective behavior. So starting again on the blaming one. So just to pick a couple out of there. One thing is kind of the feed forward. Basically, rather than saying everything that you did wrong in the past, feed forward is a practice just to point out expected behavior. Rather than just kind of rubbing the thumb in what was wrong, what you did wrong in the last meeting, you say actually the behavior that you would expect. Or one of my favorites, curiosity. Because when we as human beings, we lack information. We start to create stories in our mind. We try to fill void. We try to fill missing information with our own experience and things from the past. And what we usually really suck at is to be kind of honestly and very sincerely curious. It's like, hey, why is now this person just kind of fading away in this meeting? What is actually going on? Maybe there's more to it. So as a Scrum Master, as a team coach, or even as a team member, you could say, hey, maybe I'm just curious. Hey, I noticed you just faded away and completely disappeared in this meeting. What is going on? Is everything all right? And true curiosity doesn't have judgment in it, right? So in a judgment-free way, you try to find more information and find empathy. Moving on to stonewalling. So stonewalling, there's some practices, for example, speaking up. Usually the reaction of stonewalling is that you completely shut off, right? You stop talking and you completely disconnect. And what you could do as a team, you could say, hey, we introduce this practice of speaking up because we believe that every single voice in this team counts. If you believe that what we decided right now is complete or utter crap, you speak up. You don't stay just silent or passive aggressive. Or transparency, right? That you share when you disconnect. Hey, I am disconnecting. I'm super tired. A, B, I believe we're not coming to a point. And C, it's just a wrong day because I don't know, my child was sick and I couldn't sleep. So these are ideas for transparency. Curiosity, defensiveness, there is also a practice in there which is called 2% truth. So if you have somebody who's kind of constantly defensive and saying, hey, this is, sorry, just muting Bruce there, thanks. Somebody who's constantly kind of defensive and holding back and trying to prevent something from happening and just kind of finding all the flaws in the plan. As a team, you could say, hey, let's try to use this 2% truth. Even though we might not agree with these arguments, let's find where is the 2% truth in it and can also practice curiosity. And last but not least, contempt. Contempt is one of the most toxic behaviors. So if coming back to Dr. John Gottman, somebody asked who the name was, I believe people already put it in the chat. When Dr. John Gottman noticed in his experiments that contempt was present in this relationship, he stopped just observing and he intruded. He said, hey, there is something wrong. This is so highly toxic. So whenever contempt is present in a team, this is highly toxic. This is the worst of the 4 team toxins. And there you should actually address, speak up. And also sometimes there are certain people in the team which are super toxic that you start discussing about personal development, because contempt is not only toxic to you as a person, but it's super toxic to the person that you apply it to. So be mindful of contempt. So sarcasm and eye rolling are super toxic. And yeah, maybe the last one just to mention, COIN. COIN is one of the many different feedback practices that are out there. So COIN stands for a context. What was the situation? Observation, what did you notice? What was the visible behavior? Impact, so what was the impact on me? So when you kind of blame me for the outage that we had on production last week, I felt super hurt. I felt, I don't know, distrusted. I felt not accepted. And what I would wish for a next time when something happened is that. So basically you describe the context, the impact, and the wished behavior. So there are many different practices, and I believe there are definitely many, many more. And now, when we look at it from a high-level point of view, and I'm aware I'm skipping a lot of context at this point, but I want to put you back into action. So with team toxins, how do I, as a team coach, go about it? What I try to do are three things. First, we're going to develop a shared language. So it's like a domain-specific language. Think of if you have a team with Java developers. Everyone in the team knows what public is. Everyone knows what a class is, right? You have variables, you have strings, you have functions. So all these terms, these words are domain-specific languages. So the same works for conflict. So by introducing team toxins and symptoms, we develop a shared language within the team. So suddenly we can name something. Suddenly, if somebody is rolling the eyes in the team meeting, we can say, hey, to me, this feels like contempt. This is, and if you can name it, you can tame it. First point, develop a shared language. Second point is revealing the communication patterns. So if I would run this intervention now in a team, I would deepen the step that you've done here. Basically, when you think about what is team toxin doing, and we would personally reflect what is my toxin. So for example, if you would ask me what is my toxin that I bring in a team, is it's defensiveness. So I would completely check out. I would fade away. If I'm bored, I would even turn off my camera and I don't know, just fetch a cup of coffee because I can't stand it. And I do this to protect myself. I know it's not good. I know it's not healthy, but I am aware of it. And I notice in the moment when I do that. And if we share that within the team, we reveal the patterns of communication that exists in the team. So if you do this in a workshop and everyone in the team reveals their patterns, there's suddenly a very interesting and also very mindful conversation going on. So, oh, okay, now I know why you do what you do. Now I know why you use sarcasm. Now I know why you turn off your camera. So suddenly you gain awareness in the team about what is going on. And then the third step is, and this is what we're going to practice now in a minute, is we can create a team conflict protocol. So quick show of hands, if you have a team or work with teams, team working agreements, who has ever used team working agreements or team contracts or designed alliances? So there is a lot. There is a lot. You probably know the practice. If you don't know it, look it up. It's basically making rules in a team explicit. How do we want to be together is the basic question that usually stands behind a team working agreement. And a team conflict protocol is an addendum, is an addition to our team working agreements in a sense. And it's basically answering the question, how do we want to be together when things are difficult, right? So it's not always sunny, like in Vishal's sunny state, but sometimes also cloudy and rainy, and maybe there's even thunderstorms, right, in the team. So we want to be ready for that as a team. So next step, I'll bring in 4 questions and four prompts, and you have roughly 30 to 45 seconds to answer all these questions in the chat. So we'll do this 4 times. And after 4 times, I'll then introduce the next step. So open up the chat boxes, warm up your fingertips, and get ready to hit the keys. So the first question that I want that you answer in the chat is, think about your ideal, about your perfect team. How would that team handle conflict and disagreements? Think about your ideal team. How would that team handle conflict and disagreement? Don't write a novel, keep it short and crisp. Wow, so much in the chat. I'll bring up the next question. Second question is, write down 3 do's for handling conflict within your team. So if things get spicy, if things get dicey, what are 3 things we want to do or you should do in a team when conflict arises? Again, 30 seconds, 3 things. What are things that you should do? There's such a trove of awesome answers in the chat. I'm jumping to the next one. I know it's high pace, but we're going to keep going. Write down 3 don'ts for handling conflict in your team. What are 3 things we do not want to do when we have conflict in the team? Your way or the highway. Love it. And we go to the last question. And the last question is basically the reality check, right? So even though as a team, if you have now this kind of things that we want to do, this behavior, let's be real. We won't be able just to switch the flip the switch from one sprint to another, from one day to another. This is just not possible. This is not how a human being works. So how do we hold each other accountable for following these agreements? What are we going to do as a team if somebody breaks an agreement? Again, 30 seconds, 40 seconds. How do we hold each other as a team accountable for following the agreements? And what will we do if somebody breaks an agreement? And while the last ones are probably finishing typing their answer, we're gonna have the last breakout for today. So Vishal, please, in a moment when I'm through with my explanation, send everyone into groups of 3 again. So we're gonna mix and mingle so that we meet, hopefully, if the Zoom God allows it, 2 new faces. First, have a short conversation about the team conflict protocol. It was really a short exercise that we did, but how might such a team conflict protocol be useful for one of your teams? So first thing when you arrive in your breakout, smile, say hi, and have a short conversation about the team conflict protocol and how it might be useful. Vishal, please hit the button. 6 minutes. 6 minutes. It's gonna be already leaving early, which is completely okay. So we're almost at the end of this meetup. Just kind of before we go there, what could be some next steps for you? I know it was just kind of very condensed content in 40 minutes. I cut like at least 4 or 5 corners on the way. But I hope this could be a really good starting point for you and your teams to move forward in this direction. And in order to support you on this journey, I've kind of wrote down my script, my playbook that I always use with teams when I do team toxin interventions, team toxin workshops. So I believe Vishal has already posted the link in the chat, so feel free to go on the Leanpub page, download it. It's for free. If you want to buy me a coffee, I love coffee, but also happy if you just kind of download it for free and have fun with it is the most important thing, and use it and try to and bring it in your teams to create this language for conflict. If you want to learn more, also a bit more hands-on with a bit less packed and maybe me speaking a bit slower, next week on the 22nd of January, we have a meetup with the Liberators. It's around 4 p.m. Central Europe time, CET. So I don't know if it's not optimized for the Eastern time zone, but still, if you want to be there 2 hours, it's really a train the trainer. It's for free. It's the same as the Scrum Masters Universe, just from the Liberators. And I'll walk you through a whole setting, a 2-hour workshop. You experience it from a participant's perspective, and at the end, we just reflect on why did I do which step and how you can do it. And last but not least, I would love to connect with you, to learn from you, and also maybe get feedback if you see things, maybe draw them, kind of painted them a bit too beautiful or too easily. But my experience is actually team toxins are no rocket science. With just a small bit of preparation, this is something that you also can do in your team in a 2-hour retrospectives, maybe an extended retrospective. So enough said from my side. Just as a last checkout exercise, open up your chat again, and in one word, what are you walking away with today, from today? What is still resonating from these 45 minutes around team toxins? And yes, I'll definitely be staying for the next 5 minutes just to answer some questions, for some back and forth. So thank you so much for your participation. It was super cool to have you, all the inputs that you provided in the chat. It was really lovely for me as a facilitator to guide you through this session today.
Yeah, and thank you, Christian, for joining us at Scrum Masters of the Universe. We really appreciate your time and sharing your knowledge with us, and to all of you who came today. Thank you for coming. We still have 5 minutes, so if there are any questions, I know I think I missed one, but I saw a more recent one. Is the 4 conflict quads you shared similar to the 4 horsemen?
That's a yes. It's the same. So John Gottman calls it the 4 horsemen, and from a systems coaching point of view, we call it team toxins.
And so the other question is, like, what would be an ideal way? This is from Suruchi.
Yeah.
What would be an ideal way to create the team conflict protocol? Any examples to share?
Yes, so there's 2 ways. One way is, especially in a virtual setting, I would do as we just did today. I have a couple more questions. I'll bring them in and let them discuss. First individually answer the questions, put them into groups, and tell them come back with 3 do's and 3 don'ts. And then we just usually use the liberating structure min-specs to condense the essence of the behavior. This is one way in the virtual setting. In a physical setting, I have a template, which is actually part of the on Leanpub. You also find my templates that you can download there for free. There I have the questions in a template form. You can print it out. You just can also copy the questions and put your corporate identity on top of it. I don't care, just kind of use it. And then I'll pass it on to the participants. They take 4 minutes to fill out these couple of questions. And then we have a discussion. So this is our 2 ways that I use it.
Thanks, Christian.
Yeah, thank you all. And I hope that you have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week. We're off to a great start.
Likewise.
Tschüss, goodbye.
Yes.
Bye.
Awesome session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.